Hey guys, there'll be a couple of people watching this who've been with us since we took over the old farmhouse and will remember there was about 10 tonne of stuff here. And a lot of it was just rubbish that we had to throw away and recycle and all sorts of things. But there was also a lot of it was really useful. Everything in this room pretty much was here. The tools, the furniture, everything. But it was just scattered. Some of you who saw those videos in those days will remember the stuff was just scattered all over the place. So what we did was, there was enough receptacles, boxes and bottles and things lying around that we could use those boxes to collect everything together. So all the old spanners that we found spread out all over the place all got put together, and all the screwdrivers all got put together, and we sort of organised it. Came in here, this racking just off to my side here, all this racking was already here, so we organised that and put everything together, and so it got organised, because the old guy, some of you will remember, had his stuff all over the place, So in amongst it was a lot of useful tools, a lot of really old tools, and there was a couple of things like these old rulers that use the old measurements, the old Japanese measurements, right? So we did a video about that previously. We still use these for making straight lines. We don't use them to measure anything. But a couple of other things were lying around, like this thing, right? So this is just an old wooden box. So I used it just to throw random things in. So like a broken screwdriver that I used to open paint tins and poke holes in silicone tubes, and a couple of chopsticks and broken hacksaw blades, and this is just a random little box, right? Never gave it a lot of thought, just an old box. I always assumed, I found lots of things like this lying around the house, and often it was just boxes that he bought something years ago and it came in a box like this, and I just assumed that was another one of these, right? So I never gave this thing another thought. And then this week, I was in the other workshop sweeping, because it gets dusty in there, the walls flake. So I was sweeping in there and cleaning it up, and underneath there's a cupboard, old cupboard in there, and underneath I was sweeping it out. And right at the back, there was this. So 12 years we've been in this place, we're still discovering stuff, right? So there's this wooden box. So I looked at it and thought, that's exactly the same as the one in the other workshop. So I brought it over here and looked at it, and sure enough, it's exactly the same, including the markings that are on it. So that got me curious. Okay, all right, got to find out about this. So if you have a look at it, it's really nicely made. The joints on the corners is really well made, right? And it did remind me of a sake box, a smaller version. They still sell them. You can still buy them in shops. Same design, but smaller. It is a sake box, right? And if you go to a shrine or a temple on New Year's and they're serving sake, quite often they'll give it to you in one of these boxes. So they still sell them. They still make them. They're made of softwood, and they're exactly like this, exactly like that, but smaller. And they'll often serve you sake in them. Here you go, a little wooden box, and you drink it down, and then you give it to them. And so very similar to that. So looked it up, had to search the kanji and look it up, and found out it's what you'd call a shinkyo square, right? And apparently in 1875, the Meiji government designated this as a unit of measurement for volume for sake and rice. So if you're buying or selling sake or rice in reasonably small amounts, you'd use this for the volume, right? And the inside measurement is approximately 148 millimeters by 148 millimeters by 81 millimeters deep. It was actually point something, because of course it wasn't millimeters then, was it? It was the Japanese measurement. This one. Right. Or possibly that one. So yeah, in metric, that's what it is, 148 by 148. And so from 1875, they brought that in, and that was the unit of measurement until 1959. 1959, the Japanese government changed. This is just as a official measurement, for weights and standards, standard weights and measurements, or whatever they call it. So isn't that interesting? So 2 of them in the house for some reason. So left over from the owner's grandfather or something, who knows? I mean, this guy was also into rice. Some of you remember we had big vats that we used for rice here. So he was harvesting. He was farming rice. So at some stage in the family they must have used this, one full of this put into a bag and sold to a customer, you know, 1 unit of measurement. So incidentally, the sake cup's the same. It's a standard, I can't remember what they, is it not a Shaw? Might be a Shaw, can't remember. But the sake cup standard unit of measurement is exactly the same as well. So isn't that interesting? Isn't it amazing? 12 years we've been here, you know, still discovering stuff. Fascinating, isn't it? So anyway, so that's it. If you bought rice or sake between, in this sort of quantity, between 1875 and 1959, there's a good chance that the shop owner would have filled that to the top and then poured it into a bag and off you went. Or sake. Interesting, isn't it? So, anyway, there was that. The mysteries continue. More videos coming soon.